Hey everybody, it's Mr. Wilson. Today we're going to talk about the TINU production. We're going to take a look at one of the students who's turned their TINU production in, and they did a really good job. We're going to take a look at it and talk about what they did well, and then what they could have done a little bit better, and then show how we could improve. First of all, let's just take a look at it. This was an A. The student had all the requirements fulfilled, more than 8 shots. Everything had a sound effect. The shots were fairly short. It told a story. It was sequential. One of the things that I had some students not understand is that it really should kind of tell a little bit of a story, an operation, a project, a procedure, something happening. So this is obviously a student getting ready in the morning, getting ready for school. Again, the student got an A. It was great, but we can always improve. The praise, question, polish, we should all know PQP. I already talked about just real quick what he did well. I had a bit of a punchline as well and it's timely because as I'm making this now, we're in the middle of a COVID pandemic shutdown, so we're all distance learning. He made this like right when that was happening, and so the student's getting ready for the day, and then he looks at his phone. Oh my gosh, there's no school because of the pandemic, so it was also timely. So this is a very good video. Lots of good stuff about it. Questions, I do have a lot of questions for the student. We're not going to really talk about that right now. We're just going to talk about polish. What could be better? Well, I'm not sure if you noticed, but the main thing that I think could have been better is the sounds. One of the things, and this student didn't get this instruction, I'm giving it to you now. Your sounds should be exaggerated to an almost cartoony level. You don't want just sounds that are just the ambient sound unless the ambient sound is really loud. As an example, the one ambient sound that he had that was good was this right here, which was the bag being zipped. That was good. He didn't add a sound effect. Well, I'm not sure if he did. That's a question that I would have for him. I'm pretty sure that was just the bag being zipped. And it was nice and loud. We don't need to add anything else. But there are some that really need some additional sounds, including these two right here. Okay, so the opening of that cereal bar was not too bad, but then the eating of it could definitely be improved. And not only that, it's not too hard just to grab some sound effects and throw them in there, and it really makes a huge difference. So we're going to talk about how to fix it now. Okay, the first thing you can see that I'm actually here inside Final Cut, and this student actually used WeVideo to make his production. We're using WeVideo at home during this pandemic time. WeVideo is definitely a good editor, but I am actually going to be using Final Cut because it's a little bit more powerful and I'm also more familiar with it. But you could do a lot of this within WeVideo as well. So I've put his video down here, his WeVideo, into Final Cut, and I've cut it up into the different clips. So every shot he has, I just bladed so it's a new shot. So we're going to take a look at the very first shot, and we're going to change every single shot to a certain degree. So let's take a look at his very first shot. By the way, if you don't know the shortcut of just playing the one highlighted clip, it is the question mark key. If you hit the question mark key, it will play that clip as many times as you want to hit it. So that's not horrible. Again, most of these shots are good. We don't need to see his whole body. We're just seeing his feet. So I like that idea, but the sound isn't very loud. Remember, this is fast paced, and he's coming down the stairs not at a walk, but not very fast. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to speed it up. And if you don't know how to do that, you go here. This is change the clip retiming. We get lots of options here: slow, fast, and custom. Now oftentimes we'll use custom because slow and fast only give us a few options, but I think if I just go to fast and make it 2 times faster, I think that's actually going to work pretty well. So let's take a look at it now. That's, I think, a little bit better. And now also, if you didn't know, this is going to tell us how long the clip is. Out of 33 seconds, this is 15 frames. It's only a half second. So it was a second long before, which isn't really too short, but now it's a lot faster. And we're going to put in a much better sound. One of the questions students ask is, where exactly should I be getting all my sound effects? Well, whether it's WeVideo or whether it's Final Cut, whatever video editing application you use, you probably do have some sound effects within that. WeVideo doesn't have quite as big of a library as sound effects, while Final Cut has a much larger one. Still, you're going to want to probably go outside of your application to get sound effects. For this, I was able to use a sound effect within Final Cut. On this version, to get to the music or sound effects, we go up here and click that. Now, sound effects is already there. I'm going to, in the search bar, hit footsteps. So I've entered footsteps, and there are a whole bunch of different footsteps we can see, like lots of different types. I'm listening to many of them because I'm really wanting to get the perfect one. This is the one I ended up with. Footsteps Hard Marble Run. But the thing is, it's still not quite fast enough. So what I've done is I've put it in here, and I did the same thing to it. I made it 2 times as fast. So you'll hear when we watch it, it's going to be really much faster. So I think that looks and sounds a lot better than the original shot. It's also fairly synced up with his footsteps, amazingly, which we want to make sure we get syncing with our sounds and whatever action is also happening on screen. So that worked pretty well. Now let's look at the next shot. Okay, that's pretty good. Again, all of these shots are good. This is a good video. Again, I have to stress that. If you turned in something like this, this would be a good job, but we can always improve it. I like the whoosh when he's throwing that granola bar. The landing of the granola bar, however, is the natural sound of it, and we could definitely improve it. So we're going to do 2 things. Okay, we're going to actually cut this into 2, because we're going to make this one shot into 2 shots. So that's 1 second and 3 frames, which really isn't too long, but we could make it shorter even. So I'm going to go back until right before this cereal bar lands on the counter, and I'm going to hit blade and split it right there. Now I have 2 shots. Now this shot of the hand throwing the cereal bar, that's fine, that's good. I'm not going to need to change that. But what am I going to do with this? I'm going to transform it so it's much more impactful, because I'm going to put a really big booming sound when it lands, and if we see it a lot closer, it will really help sell that boom. We go to the clip, we click on transform here, transform, and then we're going to want to make this smaller and this doesn't make the actual image smaller, it just makes this window smaller. So I'm going to go to 25%, and then I can click the corner and drag it up. Now you don't want to click the sides, because if you do, you're going to distort the image. No. Command Z to undo. I'm going to really zoom in on this. Now we're going to lose a little bit of quality. I'm going to make it even smaller because I really want to be able to make it even bigger. I think we're going to lose some quality because we're zooming in so much, but this is one thing to think about. If you're shooting a project like this, you could be like, well, maybe I should get a real close-up of the granola bar landing, and then we wouldn't have the problem of the quality. Okay, let's see if that looks good. I think that looks pretty good, and together with this, so I think that looks pretty good, but we want a bigger noise on that landing. So again, I'm going to go up to the sound effect library, and this is also where you can find iTunes, Logic Pro, other things, but here I'm going to put crash, because I'm going to be looking for a crash type noise. And so the crash that I'm going to get, and I've already listened to many, is this. Now that's pretty intense, and you might say that's crazy for a granola bar, but exactly, we want exaggerated cartoony sounds. So that's what I'm going to use, but I'm going to actually do the same thing that I did before with that other sound effect. I'm going to make it 2 times faster. So right now I might work okay. Right? It's too long. So it's a good, I think it works pretty well, but it's too long. So I'm going to make it fast. So again, go up here, fast. I'm going to make it 2 times as fast. This is actually 4 times is even faster, 8 times. And again, you can go to custom if you want to make it like 3 times as fast instead of 4 or 2. So now let's take a look at this. I think that looks really nice. Looks and sounds great. Okay, so for this shot, it's again not bad, but the sound isn't quite as good as we want it, and I think we can trim it. The very beginning, We don't need all that, and so we're going to trim it. I'm going to hit Command plus to zoom in on this timeline, and if I go back down here, I'm just going to go one frame at a time. And right there, I think we can. And look at how much this clip is almost. I mean, that's almost 2/3 of this clip is stuff that we can just get rid of. So I'm going to trim it to there. Now it's only going to end up being like, I don't know. Let's see how many frames we're taking off there. It's 10 frames. So yeah, that's 2/3 of a second. So it's not that much, but it really does make an impact. So right, so we're cutting to it, and the action is happening right away. So that's another thing we're going to want to do. That's another thing this video needs to be improved on, is tightening the edits. A lot of students think my shots are way too fast if I make them that short. They're not. So this is good. But again, we're going to need some better sound. Okay, so for this sound, what I'm going to be using is this basement hit that sounds pretty crazy. But I put it down here, and I actually made it 150 speed. So I didn't want it twice as fast. But I wanted a little bit of fast. That's like 1.5 times fast. So it's a little bit faster, and I synced it up with the placing of the cup. Now it's kind of crazy, but I think that works a little bit better than just the cup hitting the glass. So then I'm going to put something else, and I looked up slide sound effects on YouTube, and I found this, which is a Foley, just sliding sounds, and they're very subtle, but this is, I kind of liked it, so I'm going to use this, and I just picked an in and out point here. I'm going to put it up here. It doesn't really matter where I put this video, because the first thing I'm going to do is hit Control Shift S, which is a shortcut, hopefully many of us know, to extract the audio. Now I can delete the video, but now I'm going to trim it so that I just have a little bit of it, and I'm going to again make it faster. So I'm going to click on it, go up here. I think ×2 is going to sound good. I think that I kind of was playing with it before, and let me see, going to kind of sync it up. Need to slide it over more, I think. Okay, so we hear, I'm leaving the actual natural sound of that glass sliding, but I'm adding a little bit more, just something to make it a little bit noisier, add some sound to it. Okay, here's the next shot. Okay, so again, the sound is the main culprit here. But again, also, we do not need to hang on that clip. Look at where I stopped it. Look at where the playhead is. This is almost halfway into this clip here, and he hasn't even begun to open it. I'm going to go back one frame, and then we're going to be able to take off all of this beginning of the clip. Now let's see how much that is. That's 13 frames, which is a lot when you're talking about a short clip like this. Now it's 23 frames long. Much better as far as the pacing, right? And we can actually cut away from it a little earlier too, because he just kind of holds on to it a bit, right? We don't need all that. So I think like right there, I can trim all that off, maybe add one frame to it and then take it off. Okay, so we need a better sound now. Now that it's a better edited, but we need a better sound. So looking at the sound effects library, I could not find really anything good, so I went and again I got this from YouTube, clean paper rip sound effect, and that sounds pretty good to me. So I'm just gonna make my in point, hit I, stop, hit my out point, hit O, then drag it down. There is my paper rip, but I don't want that video, obviously. Control Shift S to extract the audio, and now I delete that. Now I need to sync it up though. One way you can sync things up is, if you look, I'm going to zoom into the timeline, you can look at the waveforms. Now this is the natural noise it's making. I don't think I'm going to need to mute it, but we can see that that's where I want this to get perfectly lined up, basically, because if that sound is coming exactly as the sound it's making with the rip, so we can see that there's the peak of that rip noise, and there's the peak of the noise on the sound effect too. Probably this is going to be nice and synced. Pretty good. It's a little bit too early, it's not going to look good. Right? That is not good. No, 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 no. And if it's a little bit too late, it's not going to look good. Right? So we do not want that. We want it to be perfectly lined up like we had it. Perfect. And that's a really nice sound effect for that. Perfect. Now, we go to him eating. And again, this shot is good. The editing needs work and the sound effects. This is the weakest sound. And again, we don't need to hang on it at the beginning. We don't want to cut to him until he's right about to take that bite. So again, look at all of this I can trim off. Again, that is 8 frames. That's a lot. A little bit off the end, I think, would be good. We took 8 frames off the beginning. We took 6 frames off the end. And now we're going to add a nice crunch sound. So I found this in the sound effects Eat 2, which is good. But as you can probably imagine, it's longer than I want it. So I'm going to put it down here. But what can I do? Because it's a nice long bite, I don't want it to be that long. It's got to be real quick. So I'm going to go to fast. Let's see if I might even make it faster than this. But again, I'm going to want it synced up. So I'm going to move it over a little bit. Let's see what this looks like. Pretty good. With this one, again, he's just using the ambient noise. We don't want just the ambient noise. We can cut that out. We're going to take out how many frames here? 10 frames there. We'll keep the ending because I've got a drink thing here, and we're going to put it down here, and we're going to see this really long. So I'm just disabling those so we can listen to this. Okay, so I'm going to trim off this part. So right when we cut to him, he's going to start to drink. I can't do it here because we're going to start to hear the drink. Right, see, we're hearing that drink sound, and he's not even drinking yet. So I'm going to need to move it over a little bit because he needs to get that milk up to his lips before we hear that slurping. I'm going to blade this because over here is the gulp, and I think the gulp will be good. Right? So we're going to include that gulp. I'm going to blade it, blade it, blade it, blade it, blade it. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. Now here's the gulp. I'm going to put it over here. And I can overlap it a little bit. That's fine. Let's see what that looks like. That's pretty good. This is good on its own. He added a sound effect there. I think we could cut away from it a little bit longer. And sometimes it's even if it, like I'm going to be cutting, let's see, 10 frames off of there. Even sometimes I'll make an edit of like 2 or 3 frames, and a student will be like, Mr. Wilson, that's so picky. It's not. Editing is a fine science, and it's you need to make sure that you're getting it exactly right. 1 or 2 frames is oftentimes the difference between a good cut or a bad cut. So just a few frames sometimes really makes a difference. Okay, that's good. We just cut it down a little bit. This shot, again, I don't think I need to change this except for trimming it. He has a nice sound effect there. I think 4 ticks actually might be better. Yeah, 4 ticks is better. Now this is a great shot, really creative shot of just the feet on the floorboards. But there are 2 things. It's way too long of a shot, and he does a good job with syncing his sound effects almost everywhere except here. That comes in really late. So what we're going to do is trim it and also extract the audio so we can adjust where that sound comes in. We don't need to see him running up. See, we see him running up. Right when those feet start to slide, I think that's when we want to cut to the shot. So he's running up right when he plants those feet right there. So I'm going to trim it to there. And then we can see really that noise should start right away with that slide. It should be there. Whoosh, right there. So I'm going to click on it. Control Shift S, we should know. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it over. And we're probably going to cut away from it a little earlier too. So 3 frames taking out the end. I think maybe even earlier for this sound. Okay, next shot. This is pretty good because he adds that nice whoosh effect. It's pretty short, so this is almost perfect. But of course, if I'm going to do something to it, I'm going to actually trim off just a little bit. So we don't necessarily need that hand reaching in. For this project, you want to cut off all your fat. So right here, I think I'm going to cut to it right there. I'm going to take off how many frames? 6 frames at the beginning. So we cut to it and he just whoosh right away. And I think we can cut away from it a little earlier as well. I think maybe here. So cutting 4 frames off, and again, let's look at this. 19 frames. This is 1 second and 3 frames. This is 19 frames. This is 21 frames. This is 1 second and 10 frames. And the reason why this one's longer and it's okay is because we have actually 2 of those sounds, slurp, gulp. So I could have cut away earlier, but I like that gulp sound effect. Again, this is really good. We don't need to add anything. One thing I will do is turn up that volume. So I'm just going to click on that volume and turn it up to plus 12 decibels. Okay, this one's definitely too long. We can cut. We don't need to see him. We can cut to there, and also you can hear it's just weird when we cut there and there's no sound there for a little bit, right? Right, so we can pretty much cut all the way to right before that sound comes in, and it's going to look and sound way better. So we're going to, let's see, that's 14 frames we're cutting off the beginning of that. I like the sound there. We don't need to change the sound. He added that, I'm sure, as a sound effect, so that's good. We're going to do something here, kind of advanced a little bit. What I've done is I've got the idea of a dun dun dun, and I'm pretty sure that sound is in Final Cut, but I couldn't find it, so I went and found the YouTube video for it, dun dun dun, and I'm going to, you know this. Yeah, we know that. So I'm going to click on it, Control Shift S, separates the audio, delete the video. We can see down here, I'm going to need to move it over just a little bit. Now it should come in right when we see the phone. Now, that didn't have any sound, so that's going to help it, but what's going to be even better is something I'm going to do with this video. Again, down here, look at the waveforms. So the dun dun dun, this is the first dun, second dun, third dun, okay? So I'm going to go dun right here, and right before that second dun, I'm going to split this clip, blade it, and then again, right before that third dun, which is right about here, let's see, right here, I'm going to blade it. Yep, that's where it is. Now I've just bladed it into 3. It doesn't look any different, but I'm going to take this second shot, and again, I'm going to transform it. We go up here, we should all know this, click transform. I'm going to make it much smaller, 25% probably. I'm going to make it bigger, and I'm going to tilt it this way. So it's going to be a tighter shot of the phone, and it's going to kind of tilt the other way. It was tilting a little bit in the first shot the other way. So like that. We've seen this effect. So with each bum, it gets closer and closer, dum dum dum. And so of course, this is the third one. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, except I'm going to make it even bigger, and I'm going to go up here and make it smaller on the frame, and I'm going to have it tilt the other way like this. So it's going to be even huger like this. Let me see. I'm going to go click fit, emergency message. We see that. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, I like that. I need to make this a little longer because the dun dun dun, I don't want it to go too much into the shot of the student. So I'm going to go to slow, 50%. Let's see what that does. One more thing I'm going to do, get a freeze frame of this, because I want it to be able to be read clearly, emergency message. I think that's kind of important. So I'm going to go add freeze frame. So now what I'm going to do with this shot is I'm going to put an effect on it called earthquake, because I think it might be kind of cool looking. I believe it's under distortion effects. We should all know there's effects. Distortion is here. And click on that effect, drag it over and drop. And now it gives it a little bit of a shake. I want it to shake a little bit more, so if I go up to the inspector window over here, earthquake, I'm going to click on amount and I'm going to really kind of ramp it up. And so it's going to shake and then go back to this still frame. So it's just going to shake a little bit. Here's one more thing before we look at it, and this is really small, but he's facing to the left when he eats this bar, he's facing to the left when he drinks this drink, and then he's facing to the right. Now, it would be better not to have them all facing the same way, but actually he should be facing differently each time. So, because it kind of looks, he's looking this way, he's looking this way again. I think it would be better if we flip this. So, how do we do that? So he's facing to the right here. I'm going to have him turn around so he's facing the other way. Effects, distortion, flipped, and now when we click on that and drag it there, he's just facing the other way. Now the Wii Video thing is kind of a problem, but we're not going to worry about that too much, and we're going to want to click on this and we're going to have him flip again so he's facing one way, the other way, the other way again. I think that's just going to make it look a little bit better. That should do it, I think. Let's take a look at what it looks like now that I've made all these changes. Shift Z to see the whole thing in one frame. Close my effects. Shift Z. Here it is, the whole thing. Before we do that, let's actually remind ourselves of what the original looked like. Not bad at all, but now let's take a look at what it looks like now that I've made some changes. And actually I'm going to also add a little bit of black to the beginning. Remember, we never want our first frame to be an image. We always want our first frame to be black, even if it's just a little. So I'm just going to have 7 frames of black there. You should always have a black frame, at least one, a couple frames of black at the beginning of your video, so you don't ever have to start it with an image on screen. I hope you see that that's quite a bit better, even though it was very good to begin with. We want to make sure that our shots are cartoony loud with these crazy sound effects, although we don't want the sounds to clip. In other words, go into the red. If you have sound effects that go into the red, you need to turn them down. And we want to make sure we're trimming our shots so that we don't have any fat on them. All just the actions, and trim down anything else. Your shots should never be 2 seconds long on this video. Most of them should be less than a second. Let's just again review. 19 frames, 21 frames, 1 second and 10 frames, 23 frames, 17 frames, 1 second and 1 frame, 11 frames. The average shot is going to be less than a second when you average it all down. So hopefully this helped you concentrate on how to make your shots tighter and add more punchy sound effects. Good luck.